Danny Flexent here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined once again by my good friend and boxer promoter Ben Shalom. Ben, how are you?
Yeah, very well. Good press conference that. I think 3 fights, very competitive fights, and everyone seems up for it. So very excited ahead of Saturday.
Could it be argued that you've actually got a better main event than the 2 fights that were originally scheduled?
Yeah, I think that happens in boxing. As I just said, I do feel a bit sorry for Richard. We're on our way to world title ambitions. We thought he was 1 fight away, and Fabio Turchi pulled out, as did Mikel a while. And we had to do what we had to do, and fair play to Richard. He's taken another test. He's already beaten 4 of the big British guys, and he's now going to be a 5th, and it's a big fight. It's obviously Dion can box. He's a southpaw. He's probably a more technical boxer than Richard. Richard started later, but he's done a lot in a short career, Richard, and he's improved a lot under Angel Fernandez. I think he's improving every few months. He's still learning as a fighter. Despite his age, he's a very young fighter in the sense of how long he's actually been boxing, but this will present a test, and Richard's ready for it. He's headlining Sky. He's in a big show, and yeah, I think this is a better fight. Certainly from ticket sales and excitement and everyone talking about the show, this fight seems to have lit it more than perhaps what Turchi was going to.
It continues a kind of great time for boxer over the last few months. What else have you got kind of coming up across April and May?
Yes, so we've got Savannah in a fight next week. She'll defend, and then fingers crossed we'll announce the Clarissa Savannah fight. That we've been working on that for a while. We think that's going to be an absolute huge fight for Sky, huge fight for women's boxing. Obviously, after Taylor Serrano on April 30th, we think that is the biggest fight, and there's a lot of need all there. So, hoping to get that one over the line. Obviously, Marku, Florian as well. It's almost like a breakthrough. These 2 cards for us is like our fighters are starting to now come into their competitive stage of their career. Florian's going to fight Chris Jenkins next week, which is a big test for him. Chris looked good against Indongo in Cardiff. So, and then we're into a couple of tournaments. We've got to decide on what we're doing with Eubank. We were with Kalle Sauerland yesterday. There's a couple of big options for him, some obvious options, and obviously a world title potential opportunity as well. Kell Brook wants to fight, so he's going to probably fight in July. In a big fight as well, and Hughie Fury, we're about to announce his card. We have a few problems with the main events. I tell you, Hughie has got to be one of the most avoided heavyweights in the world. We've put about 25 offers out.
Tell us some of the fighters who've avoided him. Come on.
I've got to be careful because we're looking to work with 1 or 2, but a lot of the PBC guys, a lot of the domestic guys, a lot of the guys in the top 15 just don't want to fight Hughie Fury, and I can understand it. He's 27 years old. He's still building his profile. He's never really had a platform properly looked after him. He's just thrown himself into fights, and now he's at like the beginning of his second part of his career for us, and I don't think fighters want to lose against Hughie Fury, and we've got a good fight for him now. We'll be announcing that in the next couple of days. It's just taken a bit longer than expected.
You mentioned Eubank Jr. there, potential world title fight, potentially Kell Brook. What's the kind of percentages? What's more likely at this stage?
I think there's no denying Chris wants the Kell Brook fight, and I think Kell will take the Chris fight if the terms are right and if the weight's right. And so we started positive conversations now with Kalle. We're working towards that. We think that will happen. But the problem with us at the moment is Usyk Joshua. We're sort of having to work our schedule around that. So we have big fights that we want to announce, but we need to make sure we don't clash with. We're speaking to Freddie a lot about that fight, but making sure we don't clash with that date, and that's a bit of the delay on the May-June schedule at the moment. And I know it's as frustrating for Eddie as it probably is for us. And but yeah, there's some big fights about to be announced. We're just making sure it fits it all in together.
And does that mean Eubank Jr. against Brook would likely be on Sky Sports box office?
I think if that fight happens, of course it'll be on box office. But Eubank there's another option for Kell and there's another option for Chris, and I expect to get to the bottom of it in the next few days.
What's the current status with the Amir Khan rematch clause? What can you tell us about that? Is he likely to pursue it?
I think I've told him that I don't think that fight should happen, particularly next. I think Amir wants to. We'd have to sell it. I think Amir still hopes that maybe he'll have a fight back. Maybe not against Kell Brook, show that perhaps that wasn't what people thought it was, and then maybe the fight's on after that. And I think that's what maybe Amir's committed to now. If he really wants to come back and he really believes that he isn't finished, like what perhaps a lot of people are saying, and fair play to him, he had he says he was in, he had a shoulder injury. He did have a shoulder injury, and he had 10 weeks. If he wants to prove that he's ready to fight, and it's not just for the money, and it's for legacy, and he wants to not go out like that, then he needs to fight someone else, and he needs to show that he's serious about this and not for the big money. And then from there, maybe he'll get that big fight. But I think now he understands that, and Amir Khan will do what he wants to do, and I do expect him maybe to have one more fight and then see how that goes.
Now, something I wanted to ask you about, there's been a bit of a debate in the last few weeks between Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn, kind of hosted on Seconds Out, not to take too much blame for that, but about how much a promoter should use their own profile to help, further the success of their product or their promotional outfit. Where do you kind of sit on that? Because you're not out there all the time like an Eddie Hearn, but you're not completely reserved like a Frank Warren either. You seem to be in the middle somewhat.
I think we're trying to build our team now, in the PR team, in the social media team, and for us it's about making the fighters superstars. We have the biggest platform to do that. We want them to announce the fights. We want to put them front and centre. I think a lot of promoters have different, maybe on his own platform. Eddie's platform is the biggest platform, and so he has to do that, and I don't knock that. I think Eddie has a massive platform, and that's what he uses. I think for us, as I say, we're investing heavily in our business at the moment. We want to build superstars. We want to build superstars. We want to make sure they're on the biggest platforms. We want to make sure they're telling their stories. But of course, sometimes there's a job to be done as well. And we're just pragmatic. We'll always do what is best in the fighter's interest. We'll always do what is best for Sky and our broadcaster and the company. And the fighters will come first. And whatever we think is the best solution, whether it's for a certain fighter, whether it's Adam Azim, whether it's for Richard Riakporhe, as I say, we'll take a pragmatic approach, and Frank has shown how it can be done. Bob Arum has shown how it can be done. Al Heyman's shown how it can be done. They've all built superstars, and superstars that transcend the sport, and we think we'll be able to do that as well.
Do you think a promoter pushing themselves front and centre, and I think we agree on why that needs to happen for DAZN as opposed to Sky, do you think that can limit the ability of creating superstars in that, they're going to struggle to come through when the promoter may be a bigger star than they are?
Look, we're not like Frank and Eddie. We don't want to go at each other. We're all promoting boxing. We're all promoting fighters, and I genuinely believe Eddie cares about the sport and Frank cares about the sport. I believe that. Everyone has their likes and dislikes and criticisms, but the focus should be on investing in the sport and investing in the fighters. And what we believe is right might not be what Eddie believes is right, might not be what Frank believes is right. We think we're from a different generation. We've watched boxing in a different generation. There's different platforms now available in terms of how you can promote fights. And I don't want to get into what's best for them. We know what's best for us, and we know how we think we're going to promote our fighters and how we're going to make them more well known than any others, and that's what we'll focus on. I think that's a promoter's job, is making sure those fighters become famous, making sure they have the right fights, and making sure their stories are told. And whatever medium or platform you decide to use to do that, then that's up to you.
What if the guys at Boxer or at Sky or both said, look Ben, we're doing all right with these shows, but you get in a bit more front and centre, use your own profile a bit more, get out there. How comfortable would you feel doing that?
Yeah, completely comfortable. I think look, I'm on the top table, we're doing interviews, we're there, but it's just as our focus isn't always myself. I don't think that necessarily helps all the time, and I don't think people want that from me. I don't think fighters necessarily want that. I don't think fans necessarily want that. They want the fights. They want the big fights, and we've made that very quickly. We're doing extremely well. We're way ahead of time. We're competing with a platform that invests a huge amount more in boxing than Sky does, and we think we're putting on fights, and that's what fans care about. That's what the broadcaster cares about. The broadcaster doesn't for 1 second give a shit about how big Ben Shalom's profile is. They give a shit about what their schedule looks like, what the fighters are like, what fighters are signing for which platform, and we think we're in a very good spot with that.
Great stuff, Ben Shalom. Always appreciate it.